Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Balance Bureau. Today I have on with us beautiful and amazing Amanda. She is a luxury women's hormone expert, and I am so excited to have her on and really dive into her realm of expertise because it is so not my realm of expertise. And I love that we can share these stories and these messages together to really learn from each other and deepen our knowledge and wisdom on certain topics. And I feel this one is very important, especially with the way that Amanda goes through all of her teachings, and her work is just amazing. So I would love for Amanda to introduce herself, and then we will dive in a little further.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lindsay. So, yeah, definitely women's hormone health and just from all ages, walks of life. So, from young teenage years to adolescence and post pregnancy, during pregnancy, postpartum, like all of these different walks of life that us women can go through or may choose to go through. Some of them are involuntary, maybe perimenopause, menopause, some of these things, right? um, but I really love helping women navigate these different seasons because I feel like we are just so not taught any of this stuff through our schooling. Our, I don't even know, like high school health class that we have to take for like half of a year or whatever it is. And like you do your sex ed in fifth grade. I just feel like, yeah, it's a bare basics, but um, we're just really not taught how to navigate that as women, how to nourish ourselves, how to, really talk about stress and how that can affect our cycle and, fertility and way we walk through menopause, like just these different seasons of life. And I just feel like this is such an important conversation that we're starting to have more openly, which is wonderful. I still just don't think that it's being had openly enough and has reached enough women yet. So that's definitely part of my mission and part of, continuing these conversations is just really bringing that to more women and helping women again of different walks of life, different stages of life, and also, helping moms that are maybe raising daughters that just, they didn't have those types of conversations and knowledge, but now maybe they can share that with their daughters as well. So yeah, super excited. Thanks for having me and can't wait to chat some more about all the juicy details.
Yes, and that is exactly why I was like, yes, we need her on the podcast because everything you just said, I was like, that's me. That's me. Like, I just had the general, I think the parents even had to sign, at least I do now for my kids, to go into that class for a couple sessions, and then they're just kind of leaving it confused and almost like questioning. So I've seen that a lot with my daughters. And then even personally, I was raised by three men. I lived with my dad, my uncle, and my grandfather. And being the only girl in the house, I was like, what is happening? Like, I don't fully understand. I feel alone. And I feel like that loneliness feeling on top of everything and like not knowing how to navigate it is like the most important thing that we can do as a society, even more so than just being women and learning more about ourselves, but for the men in our lives to learn and hear and help us through it. It just makes it a more well-rounded thing to live with because it is normal, but we don't understand it. So that's why I'm so excited to have you here today, and I would love to hear really like how you got started in this because I know that your background, right, wasn't really in this to begin with, was it?
No, no, no. So, not to bore everybody to tears with my background, but I went to school, I went to college for engineering and stuff like that. So, yay, woohoo. And I mean, it was great education and stuff like that. But did I actually follow my heart's desire at that point in time? No, absolutely not. There was other things at play, and we don't have to dive into how that decision came to be. But I always had a like just like a strong desire for health. Like I was always very into that. Even in high school, I remember just like learning about like eating and nourishment and like exercising and sports and just like all of these things. So that's always like that was always like a foundation for me. And then as I, again, I went through college and then got my first job, big girl job and all that, like living in the real world society, paying my own bills and doing all the things, adulting. It just became more and more evident that this was such a passion of mine and something that I really leaned into. And so for me, for a while, I will admit that it became kind of like a crutch or something that I maybe went a little extreme on. I definitely used it as something I could control in my life. It's something I did not have a lot of when I was, growing up. And again, just like childhood things that we don't have to, necessarily go into here, but it was the one thing that I could control. It was like the one thing that, I get to decide, what I eat, what I don't eat, how I move my body, how I don't, like, all of these daily decisions that we get to choose for ourselves that maybe we don't get to as kids as much, but as adults on our own, we definitely do. And it's a choice. And I definitely leaned in, like I said, probably a little too aggressively, and did some things that at the time I didn't realize were completely detrimental to my health. Like I thought, following all the cultural norms of like, oh, we should do this diet and you should exercise this much and you should be doing this and this and this and this. Again, this is like 10 years ago, right? So if you think about what those cultural norms were back then, I was doing all of those things. I did all the diets, I tried all the things, and just, it just, looking back now, I know it completely depleted me. It rocked my hormonal health. It just made things a mess when I thought I was actually trying to help myself. So anyways, I started to get really curious about holistic health because that started to become more of a well-known thing, and just people were talking about it a little bit more. So it piqued my curiosity. So I was researching and, learning a little bit. I was dabbling in it. And I had my first son. And again, so I became a little bit more interested in it because, like now you have a baby, you got someone else to take care of, and just like trying to decipher, okay, what's right for us, and just navigating that. And there were some issues that kind of came up for me, like health-wise, that, became a little more pronounced. Like I became a little bit more aware of them. But I thought it was like normal again. And we can talk about this whole concept of like normal versus common, but I get very specific about that. And so I thought this was normal, air quotes. And, just kind of like went on with my life. And again, like this is just what, from influences that I had in my life, from doctors, I was just like, okay, well, this is kind of how it goes, right? And then years later, I had my second son. And let me tell you, that postpartum anxiety and postpartum period with him completely rocked my world. It like shattered the ground that I had underneath me. Like everything that I thought I knew, everything I thought I was completely like almost just like went up in flames. Like I had such bad anxiety about medical, about sicknesses, about, holistic health, and just like living and just like doing all of these things. Like, again, I went to the other extreme. And I, again, looking back now and like having gone through a healing journey and being in a much better relationship with food, with, holistic, non-tox living, but balancing it with reality, right? And not just being so extreme and like, oh my God, everything has to be this way, and like white knuckling it, because that's like totally what I was doing. And like almost making my family and kids feel like there was something always wrong with us. Going through those experiences, and like I said, now looking back, it was another extreme for me. And I realized that this all happened because it was years of just depletion. It was years of undernourishing myself. It was years of completely over exercising and stressing my body out like to the max. It was not paying any attention to the little things that actually make a difference, that we, especially as moms, like really forget about, or just kind of push to the side and say, oh, I don't really have time for that anymore. Or just aren't aware, again, right? Like some of this is just awareness. So yeah, it was a really, really dark period of time for me for a good solid 6 months, I would say. And then slowly I started to kind of like crawl out of it. And then as the years went through, went past, I started to, again, really pull myself out of this extreme. I realized I was living in extremes, and that's just, again, my type A personality, or, like that badge I want to wear. And again, I'm breaking away from that as well because it's an identity, right? And it's something that I was identifying with. And again, it can be an extreme. And I wore it as almost like a badge of honor. And that too was also crippling my health. And so all of this to say, I'm kind of like jumping around a lot and bringing in like lots of different topics and like lots of different nuggets to think about, but the whole point of this is that when we think about health, when we think about motherhood and bringing those two things together, or just even if motherhood is not your calling, just health as a woman, it doesn't require extremes, and it definitely doesn't require you to abandon yourself in order to raise the kids, in order to grow your business, in order to be successful in your career, like whatever that looks like for you. Um, it's it's really about truly having this awareness and education of what's actually going to support you and how to do it in a way that works for you, that sustains you, that gives you energy, that gives you life. Because the way I do it may not be the right way for you. Even though the foundations of women's health are the same, right? Like fundamentally we need certain things as women, but the way we go about it may look different. And that's okay. And we do not have to do it in extremes, and we do not have to do all the things just because we see some influencer doing it. Okay? Because I say that with love because that was the guilt trap that I fell into. So just saying from experience. So I really want to give that permission slip to any, women, or again, even men, feeling that way, because it doesn't have to be so complicated or white knuckly or extreme. So
Yeah, and fine, and I connecting with so much that you're saying, and you did leave us with so many things to think about. But like you said, that awareness is like so important. And I feel like a lot of times maybe we just aren't aware, and we're just so stuck in, oh, well, I tried this and now it's just normal. Oh, I implemented this, and the way I'm feeling now is it's just normal. That's just how I'm going to be, and that's just the life that I'm living, and that's just that. And then we see something else and we're like, okay, now we have to cling on to this extreme. But the way that you bring in the balance, and this is really what I want to highlight next, is that balance. And so far, I've seen you even push against that balance of the hormone, and I used air quotes, because your approach is so much different than just an extreme and chasing that balance for more than just your life. You go even further into that individual. And I really want to highlight that here for you today, because I know that there are some things that you've shared before that are just so captivating and compelling for me to hear as someone who is not as aware and in that world that you're in. So, can you dive into what has happened when you look at the whole person as your client and what that has done for the people that you've worked with?
yeah, for sure. So I think, speaking from experience personally and now professionally, it's my biggest question is, let me start here. When you've last gone to a doctor or a practitioner, or maybe both, I know there's people that are Western medicine all the way, there's some that are holistic medicine all the way, and there are some that utilize both. So wherever you fall on that spectrum, I say this with love, I ask this with love. When was the last time they asked you truly about how you are? How's your life? What does it look like? And I'm not talking about going to the doctor or having them, doctor, practitioner, again, whoever, sitting down and being like, okay, well, your labs look good, or maybe there's like one level that's a little off, but not like drawing some like major concern or whatever, or maybe there is. Regardless, are they asking you, what's your sleep like? What does your sleep routine look like? How's your morning routine? Like, how are you waking up? What's your stress like? What is your work-life balance like? Do you have any hobbies? Are you raising kids? How are your relationships? Like whether you're married or single or again, just whatever that looks like for you. How are your friendships? How are your relationships with your parents, with family, things like that. Like, I mean, there's just so much that goes into play with this. Are we talking about any past traumas? Like, of course, then that brings up a whole other aspect of, emotions and how are we dealing with those? Are we just suppressing them and pushing through to get through our day? Are we feel like we're white knuckling through our day? Like, what does our energy look like? There's just so many questions that we get so granular with, like, and I have to check myself sometimes, right? Because like you said, we can get into these routines and it just becomes normal for us. And it's like, well, wait, I know I've been doing this for a year or 5 years or 10 years or shoot, maybe even 20. And like, is this truly the best thing for me? Or maybe did it serve me for a season and now I need to let go of it, right? Again, and I say that with intention because, for example, if you have someone who just had a baby yesterday, some of the things that they may need to do in order just to get through their day is and should look different than someone who's has kids that are maybe elementary age and older that are a little bit more self-sufficient. Or that's also going to look different than the woman that's going through perimenopause and menopause, right? So my point is like, the person you're seeing for your health, are they truly looking at you as a person and really diving into you versus just, hey, you are another patient. Here are your labs. Here's the values, black and white. It, doesn't give you a ton of information, right? It's just yes or no. And like just really putting the human back into that experience. I feel like, and I witnessed that is just such a missing piece in our overall health system. Again, whichever way you follow or lean towards, it just seems like it's a common theme that I see all the way around. So
Just not putting the human into the human. And it's just removing it. So then we feel even further lost, maybe even abandoned, and just overall misunderstood. So it leaves us in this cycle of searching for, okay, so what is my answer? What is wrong with me or wrong with me? The air quotes of there's always something wrong with you. You have to go get this done next. And it's just like, when am I going to feel okay?
Yeah, and I think that it's important also to, kind of use that with discernment because I know sometimes when we start, asking questions and like all of these things come up, like, this is my routine or like this is what my stress looks like. This is what my daily work-life balance looks like. This is what, I'm eating or exercising, like all of these things that come up that is actually like truly your lifestyle. It can feel almost like an interrogation. It can almost feel like, okay, well, this is what I've been doing. Like, God, I've been doing it wrong, again, air quotes, for so long. And I think sometimes I just want to like acknowledge that because I know it can feel very sensitive and very like you're cracking yourself open and like divulging like all of this information. But I want to just also like assure you that, if you do have someone asking those questions, it's, at least from my perspective, it's never from judgment. It's really just trying to understand you and, take mental notes of like, okay, where can we improve? Where can we make adjustments? Where can we bring in that awareness, that education? Because yeah, you may be doing something that like you saw your parents doing or your grandparents doing. And again, it's not to lay blame or say you're doing it wrong. It's meant and designed, again, my intention is to bring awareness because we just aren't taught these things. And it can seem so small and like so detailed at times that it can feel almost like attacky, but I promise you it's not meant to be. So I just wanted to bring that to light too, because as you were talking about that, like it was just made me like, oh, I could totally see how that can make people feel like they're doing it wrong, right? Or they're doing these things that they've been doing for decades, and it's just like, well, now you're telling me all of a sudden it's wrong? Like what? So I think I want to take that kind of out of our vocabulary of like, there's nothing like wrong, or there's nothing like that you have to fix. It's more of like, how can we fine tune and how can we adjust things to actually have it work for your health instead of like it like being a thing that's working against you. Um, so yeah, I just think that that's really like an important thing. Like we just want to use some discernment there. And definitely like there's nothing wrong with anybody. Like everybody has a human body and it's designed exactly the way it's meant to be. It's just we have to get really, really educated on how that human body works and what are the things that are actually going to, like I say, nourish it and give it life versus depleting it and stressing it out and yeah, putting this like pressure there.
Yeah. And letting yourself get a little open sometimes too is like the first step of figuring things out. It's like, okay, well, why are they asking these questions? Are these questions that I should, bring home and think about and do a little bit of assessment on my life, and then not, like you said, fall into that extreme of constantly assessing yourself. So finding that thing that works for you best, whatever that looks like. And I feel like you really highlight that a lot throughout your work of it's not just one lane, it's not just one answer. And it's really cool to see, especially as someone who is learning and someone who is new to that part of their body and their human experience. What is something that you really like to highlight on or that you see a pattern on most when you're working with your clients, like as a starting point?
Starting point. Oh my gosh. So typically, typically it's two areas, and I would say I've never had a client to date where we did not need to address nervous system. And that can look like, being in a chronically stressed out state given life circumstances. It can be, um, holding on to a trauma that happened either last year or 20, 30 years ago. It can be, yeah, purely situational, right? Like maybe they're in the heat of the moment of something really big in their life, right? And just, working through those emotions, sitting with those emotions, and actually truly being able to process them. And I know that's going to sound like really buzzwordy because so many people are talking about it, but again, like truly like talking about it and doing it and putting into action are two very different things. And what I've seen is that the women that actually do that hard work and get comfortable with the uncomfortable of doing that, because again, especially our generation, let's just be honest, we weren't really taught that. Again, no shame or hate to our parents. They didn't really learn it from their parents, right? Like this is a generational thing. Like this is not a hate on anybody. This is just culturally facts from what I've seen. Even myself included, like I had to teach myself how to do this because I didn't really know how to do it either. And I'm still learning. Like I am not perfect. We all have our days, but my point is really bringing that into practice and really being honest with ourselves. Like where are our stresses in life? And honestly, where are we creating stresses in our life? Maybe unintentionally, again, bringing in that awareness, but like that's why we have these conversations. That's why when I sit down with my clients, it is a full on like we're going to get to know each other very well before we discuss anything, because if your nervous system isn't on board, like if you're just stuck in this heightened stressed out state, or maybe you've been stressed out for so long that now you're in like a freeze state, like where you're just like, I'm not motivated, I can't do anything, you know? We got to get your nervous system back into balance. And it's not about being perfect. It's not about getting rid of stress. It's about being able to move through stress, rest, and relax. Stress, rest, and relax. Your body needs both to survive. Yes, you need stress to survive. Like this is a human, we're human. And it's really about bringing, again, like that balance and just having your nervous system on board and ready and open to receive anything further. Because if you're not ready, and if that's not a foundation that we lay first, I don't care what, routine we try to do, what protocol we go after, what, we'll run functional testing to give us like actual insights into like what's happening in your body, like give us like more answers and clues into like what's going on. We can start implementing things to course correct like what we're seeing. But at the end of the day, if that's not a foundation that we have laid, like it's going to be really, really hard, if sometimes not if impossible, to actually make any forward progress and do it in a way that's going to actually sustain you and be something that you can carry with you for years. Because what I don't want to have happen is you do something for 3 months or 6 months and then you turn around and go right back to where you were. Like that doesn't do you any good. Like we really want to make sure that you're ready to take that on and really ready to allow your body to do what it needs to do. It needs to feel safe in order to heal. And that's where having that balance comes into play with your nervous system. So that's obviously like a very big one. And then just depending on the person, the individual, sometimes it also makes sense to jump in right away. Sometimes we need to have a little bit of time, but closely thereafter, once we get nervous system on board, foundations built, like we're working through this and this becomes a regular habit, something that we're paying attention to, excuse me. Then the next thing is minerals. Resourcing our body, making sure that we fundamentally have the right resources and spark plugs to actually get things going in our body. Because between that and nervous system, if we don't have both of those, like I said, it's going to be really difficult to get things moving in the way that we want to. So whether that's, energy, losing weight, having easy cycles that don't suck, acne, bloating, a joint pain, all of these things, like it's going to come back to those two things. You have to, I shouldn't say have to, let's take that out of the vocabulary. I really strongly recommend that that's your starting place and not just a quick supplement that someone on freaking Instagram is telling you to take, or, Facebook mom group. Again, love those groups. But like it irritates me that like we're giving all this blanket advice of like some supplement to just take, like it's gonna fix your problems, and it's not. Like we have to, if we're actually serious and being honest with ourselves about our health, like those are the starting points. And again, you build upon that, absolutely. Like that's, you don't just do that, but those, those are your starting points. If you don't have those working in tandem together as your foundation, it's gonna be really, like I said, really, really difficult to move forward.
I love that you brought up nervous system and then even mentioned that it is like buzzy right now.
Mhm.
Because I feel that too, and especially as someone who's trained and learned so much about nervous system, so are you. It's kind of almost defeating at sometimes when there is so much of this buzz around nervous system. And for everyone listening today, I really want to share, like, from Amanda's perspective and her expertise, the actual starting point of what that looks like when you look at nervous system, and something that you can look at and implement today to get in tune with that. So, Amanda, if you could just share, like, what even looking at your nervous system looks like, feels like, and something that they could like apply today to get back in tune with that from your lens.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a tricky question just because I do believe it is so nuanced, right? So everybody is going to have a different place that they are in with their nervous system. Some may be a little bit more balanced, but could use a little bit of work. Some that are like way off extreme and really need a lot of work to kind of like bring it back in and center in. Like again, like what I was talking about, that balance and being able to ebb and flow between the two, meaning like stress, rest, and relax, right? So my my biggest thing is we have to get so honest with ourselves. And this is not always easy to do, especially like if you're just like sitting alone, you're like, oh, I'm trying to get honest with myself and like this is my circumstances, like I can't really change them. Like what do you mean? Like we're like what else can I do? You know, and I understand like how it can feel like you're just stuck and like, you know, circumstances are creating your reality, right? And absolutely, there definitely are situations where, you know, you really can't change it right now. Or like you may be stuck in a tough spot right now, right? And I definitely understand that, respect it, and just know not everybody is obviously not everybody's walking the same life path, right? So it's really difficult to say like, okay, every person should start here because that again, that's not reality, right? So my biggest piece of advice is if you can, again, whether it's with a practitioner or maybe you have a friend that is actually like really well educated and versed in this, I just think that you have to be so discerning with who you choose to work with in this area, someone who actually does truly understand this line of work. Maybe you do reach out to them. Maybe you have a family member. Again, I don't know what the situation is for each individual, but I just really recommend getting in contact with someone who does understand this and who can actually help walk you through and give you a line of questioning, not to interrogate you, but to get curious, to get really honest with yourself and say, okay, yeah, these may be my circumstances, but I'm also choosing how to handle it. I am choosing how to walk through it. Maybe I am creating this extra stress because of the circumstance that I, again, innocently didn't even realize, but it all adds up, right? So I think that that's really, really important. And then from there, I mean, there's so many tools out there. Again, like the buzziness of nervous system. I mean, there's so many things, you know, from somatics to, you know, to journaling to, you know, just different vagus nerve exercises that you can do. I mean, like there's not a one avenue even with like tools. So again, just like having someone who's really well versed in, you know, just different options that can really be helpful for you. Or again, maybe you already know, hey, these tools really work well for me, and I just want to get more in depth with those, like maybe somatics, for example. And like maybe you really work with someone who's very in depth, like knowledge, has that deep knowledge base of that, and maybe you choose to work with them because like you know that that's what works for you. But again, I think it's very important to use discernment and not pigeonhole yourself into thinking you have to do it one way, because I can tell you from the women I've worked with, all different walks of life, all different ages, all different circumstances, there's rarely two people where the same exact tools work for them. It's, you know, it's a blend, it's a mixture. It's, you know, this one may work for her over here, but the other one absolutely hates it. Right? So I think it's just super important to, again, get curious, have someone that really understands this information and can just help walk you through it, coach you through it, help you get curious and help you get honest. Because if you can't even be honest with yourself about this kind of stuff, then it's gonna be really hard to move forward and move the needle, because it all starts with you and taking on a certain level of ownership with it, and just and being able to trust yourself too, I would say, with that.
That's beautiful. Again, it's not just one size fits all,
Mhm.
and you have to really take a look at your circle and see who's in it that's there, in a supportive way that could guide you. And then if not, then where can we find Amanda, right? Like,
Yeah, there you go. And again, and it's not to poo-poo on anybody, and it's not to say, like, I mean, like you say, you look at your inner circle and you may realize, like, hey, there's a situation or a relationship that really isn't benefiting me, and like you may have to come to a crossroads with that, and it doesn't have to be today. Maybe you start doing some of this inner work and then you realize what that answer is going to look like for you, because again, that's not the same for everybody. Or maybe you take a look at your circle and just be like, I love my inner circle. They're super supportive, but maybe they're just limited with their support because they may not be experts in this stuff. You know what I mean? Like they may not know. So if you take the first step and you start doing this work, maybe you share it with them and maybe it helps them too, right? So I think again, it's using discernment. It's not to say like, okay, no one's helping me, screw my inner circle, or like, everybody in my inner circle is like a bad influence, like forget everybody. You know what I mean? Or putting the hood over your head and face and just being like, okay, my inner circle is great, even though like all they do is maybe degrade you. Again, like I don't know. Again, that's probably an extreme, but like let's just be honest. Again, like this is something that you may have to sit with. You may have to sit with it for months, a year, I don't know, and just get really honest with yourself. But I think that you bring up such an important point there, Lindsay, because who you do invite into your circle and who you do allow to be a part of your daily, weekly, monthly life can absolutely influence, your stress levels and your lifestyle 100%. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
I love that we keep going back to this extremism.
Yeah. I've battled it for so many years. And I think, again, just being that type A personality ever since I was younger. And I don't know, I've really kind of switched into a AB kind of situation. And just like I have my type A isms about certain things, and I have like gone completely B. I don't know if is that type C? I don't even know. I get confused with all these labels and stuff like that. But like, yeah, I mean, it is an extreme sometimes, or just like, I don't know, like people pleasing, peacekeeping, feeling like you always have to do all of the things, feeling like you have to be the superhero mom or wife or career woman, or again, like whatever your thing in life is. I just think that like the extremes is where we get in trouble. The extremes is where we really stop paying attention to ourselves, is where we start losing self-trust, where we start losing our inner intuition, our that gut feeling, that like just inner knowingness without necessarily rational reason. I think we start really losing that, and it's so important. I mean, regardless of a healing journey, like it's just important for, I think, life, like having that discernment and being able to live in harmony and not feel like you have to constantly be in an extreme, which I would classify as a type of like always having to be on. It just I know so many people, women, identify with that, but I promise you, if we can get also really honest with that and start peeling that away, not to say that you have to completely get rid of it, because that may just be the part of like who you are, but does it have to be so extreme? Does it have to be in every aspect of your life? Does it have to control every decision you make, right? Like that's where the extremes come in, and that's where it can be really detrimental. Yeah.
And it's such a good point. And that I feel like that sentence alone could speak to probably half this world. It's we have to be on all the time, and we
Hmm.
don't. We do not have to be on all the time. And this is something I've said in so many episodes of you are more than just getting the laundry and the dishes done. You are more than just crossing off boxes on your to-do list. You are so much more than that that you don't have to be on all the time. You can just simply be. You can rest. It's okay to, let your nervous system get a little bored. It's okay to hear the thoughts, even though if they're scary. It's okay to process through that feeling of self-doubt or process through that feeling of beating yourself up because you feel like you have to be on all the time. And it's such an important message that I really hope it sticks with the listeners today and whenever they're hearing this because it is just so important. And it sounds like it's a starting base or like home base truly for that hormone health that you talk about so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think too, again, just like as you were speaking, like this kind of came through is that I want to invite anybody that's hearing this to get curious, right? If you feel the need to constantly be doing something, why? Why is that? Right? And that can start opening up doors and it may be very uncomfortable. I am not sitting here telling you that it is going to be a walk on the beach. I'm not going to lie to you. It's probably going to be uncomfortable as hell. But why is that? Is it because a previous relationship made you feel that way, told you you had to constantly do and be doing something in order to earn love? Was it a childhood situation where, like, if you didn't do enough, you were never deemed good enough? Was it, I don't know, a friendship that felt like you were always giving, 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 and the other person was always taking, 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 right? It can look so different and come up in so many different ways for different people. But again, the point is regardless what that looks like for you, why? And when you get to that why, ask why again. You may have to ask why a couple times, to be honest, and really start digging in to like, okay, I feel like I have to constantly be doing things because when I was doing things, that's how I created a successful life. And when I created a successful life, whether that was good grades or good work ethic in a career or, growing my business, raising my kids, again, whatever, it's because then I felt like I was appreciated. It felt like then I was loved. It felt like I was rewarded. Okay, well, how did that make me feel? It made me feel like I had to earn it. So you keep asking yourself why. And again, like that's just a random, probably like rabbit hole thought that I'm taking you down, but it can look different. And I think just getting super curious and like then sitting with that is the deeper in nervous system work that I'm talking about, is getting to that point, having someone coach you and ask you questions in a way that helps you get to that. Because when you can uncover that, that's when you can start using the tools to help you, to rewire it, to let it go, to change your story with it, to change your relationship with that feeling, right? And it's not to say you have to pretend like it's not there, because again, that's just depressing, but like really to almost, the way I'm envisioning it is almost like to create like a friendship with it, right? To where you don't fear it anymore. You don't feel like you have to push it away because it's so big and scary and like uncomfortable, but to where it also doesn't feel like you are being controlled and dominated by it either. So I'm hoping that like makes sense and is landing for people, because it's important. And I think we've lost this sense of like getting curious, instead of all we want is just answers of like how to get rid of it.
Yes. Yes. We just want the answers. We just want to feel better. And and then the work comes up and we're like, we don't want to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. we have to do the work. And finding those people like Amanda, uh, and some other coaches out there that I know and I've highlighted through some of the bundles are there to truly help you. It's not just, oh, well, here's someone throwing a supplement at me. Let me just go buy that and then not do the work. Really connecting with those people that you can tell they know what they're talking about. They have that lived experience. They have that wisdom, the deep knowledge, the expertise, and really getting in their world and unfollowing the people just throwing shit at you. Uh, is another step that I'm taking away from our conversation today because it's just so it's so highlighted. Um, and what we've talked about. So before we before we wrap up, I really want to guide anyone that this really spoke to today right into your world. So where does that fit best for you for them to come in on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say Instagram is really like where I live and where I share information, share insights, and just try to, speak my message to, again, as many women, men, people out there. So definitely connect with me on Instagram. I'm an open book. You can always chat with me, whether you want to work with me or not. Like, there's no, like I say, there's no stupid question. There's no person that needs to feel alone in any of this. So just connect, just ask, just say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, whatever that looks like for you. Because here's also the reality is if you don't ask for help when you need help, you can't get the help. So I like to have that as a reminder that sometimes like that first step may seem really scary because you don't want to ask for help. You don't want to admit that you have these feelings, you have this situation happening, but you know, if you're still listening to this, you like there is still something like you're sitting here connecting with something and there's still something that's pulling you to be like, okay, maybe I should just do it. Okay. Like put the ego and pride aside. Like no one's going to judge you for asking for help. Okay. So I'd say that's one place. And then, if you're like, absolutely, I'm all in, um, I can send you the application to work with me one on one, where we get really, like I said, like everything that we've talked about, all the questions, all the lifestyle stuff, all the hormone stuff, all of the nervous system stuff, like all of these things. That's where you're going to find it is in my one on one hormone healing program. And yeah, I just, I can't wait to connect with you, can't wait to hear from you. And like I said, anybody that just feels even like 5% interested or like curious, like definitely just reach out. Just reach out.
Just reach out. And
Mhm.
and sometimes that's the hardest part, right? But I like how you mentioned just put those feelings aside for now. Like we're not suppressing the ego and the possible, shame of asking for help. We're not suppressing that. We're just acknowledging that it is difficult to take the first step, but let's start doing it anyway, right?
Mhm.
I feel like if that could ripple out into thousands of people of let's just get the help anyway, we would see a change within like 3 months. Um, just for everybody, the collective.
Mhm.
So we're done not asking for help. We are beginning to reach out and we are staying connected with those that see us and hear us and understand and are ready to move us forward. And I feel like that awareness piece and just that connection from this conversation is life altering. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing your time with all of us. And I will put all of Amanda's links and everything else in the show notes. So just click down and scroll and she'll be right there for you. So thank you again, Amanda, for your time and your message and your work. It's just so amazing.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Lindsay, and I really appreciate the opportunity.